Hey again. The promised video, I was really pondering about it a lot and thinking I was gonna do it live because it's probably better, and sometimes I like the two-way conversation, but either way, animals and people. How much are we like animals, or how much are we not? Speaking from my own observations, and also, let's say, trying to break down my own biases and personal opinions about this, watching loads of documentaries in my life and things like that. So how much are we like animals, or how much are animals like us? That's, in my opinion, really hard to distinguish to begin with. Let's say, do animals have emotions? I think there's a lot of videos that you can find that will prove that to you, that animals have a capacity to express in their own way emotions and emotional states, a lot like we do. Sadness, happiness, joy, uh, maybe resentment, anger, and things like that as well. But it comes to them more natural, in a, let's say, as a response. Plus, to a certain extent, the less intelligent animals are not capable of holding grudges. But then when we look at things like using tools, creativity, ability to communicate with regards to interspecies and also with other species, there's a lot of animals that have these abilities. And it's amazing because when, for example, you look at, I don't know, birds and dogs becoming friends, cats and dogs becoming friends, then you have larger animals like whales and dolphins, and other mammals such as apes and monkeys. When you look at their own social interactions, when you look at their own interactions with other species, you can actually find a lot of similarities between us. Where I think people are different is predominantly in our different thinking patterns that tend to separate us from the nature, our own nature, and then the nature itself as such. So where we tend to build our own barriers and create things we deem and consider superior to the animal kingdom. And on the other hand, most of these inventions and modern way of living, let's say, seem to be very destructive to the humanity and the general biology of the planet Earth itself. Plastics, chemicals, industry, pharmaceuticals, food industry, our way of living these days. Because when I look at, I don't know, more tribal and then ancients, for example, so societies that tend to live maybe more or less isolated from the civilization, as we call it. And then also I watched a documentary about centennial groups. I hope I pronounced this correctly, but it's all about the people who live, the communities where people live on the average longer than 100 years. And it's really interesting to observe the difference between these groups of people and the rest of us. So what do we have that they don't, and how does that affect our life and health and well-being? And what do they have and what don't they have. And for the most part, these groups of people, what they have is strong communities, strong families, sense of some traditional values that are, it's not about tradition, it's not about ideologies and beliefs, but it's actually living together in the cycle with the nature. Because when I look at us and animals together, we also live ultimately not so much according to our own free will. And this is what I'm not talking just about what do we believe, how are we indoctrinated through our lives and system, but also more in terms of our biological rhythms. So how you sleep, what you eat, how you physically feel about yourself, and on a daily basis your baseline of daily operations. So just physical body operations. And when you look at animals, we have exactly the same needs, right? You need to eat, you need to do certain things to make sure that your body can function. So without, for example, certain amount of sugars in your food, and I'm not talking processed sugars, but just whatever the food naturally contains, you just cannot wake up. You can't get up. Your body won't get enough of adrenaline, not adrenaline, but the dopamine it needs to function. So we all have the same, not the same, but we all have different levels of dopamine, but there is a baseline of dopamine, and then it either drops or it peaks. And that's what makes you wake up or go under your baseline level. So when you feel fatigued and you cannot get up. In the same way, animals have their own biorhythms. So basically you have a routine in life, whether you develop it or it's just natural. And then in life, of course, things happen that break you out of that routine and you have to adapt. And this adaptability is what I think is really unique for us humans compared to all other animals. This is where we are unique, that we do have a lot bigger palette of skills, abilities, interspecies communication, and also exploiting the environment to our advantage, so that we can not just survive, but adapt to the environment where we live, or also change the environment where we live into something that we can find more comfortable for us. And this is, again, where we are different than animals. Seeking comfort. When we get too much comfort, it's funny enough, we turn a lot more into animalistic side than we know. Because our brain needs stimulation, our body needs to be active. So in a sense of things, of the fact that we still come from an ancient survival, gatherer, hunter mode of species, it does have our natural drive that we need some challenges. We need to have problems that we want to solve. So in a sense, if you have nothing in life that presents a challenge, you start becoming anxious, depressed, irritated. All of these small chipping away toxic patterns into your own person and who you are, because at the end of the day, too much comfort makes you lazy, and the brain starts to replace that need for activity and developing and growing itself with patterns that are totally automatic for us. And the more people are deluded with this self-superiority and grandiosity, how much better we are than animals, the more we become like the lowest end of the animals, the predators, the animals that are cold-blooded, lizards, snakes, and such. So animals that don't have the capacity to feel that level of empathy and emotion, where just pure survival is the only thing. And I think it boils down to, let's say, some of the poorest of the edges of society, and then also the richest. Because the poorest have to fight for survival. They don't have another option. But the richest have all the choices that they can make. But they still live in fear of losing everything they've had and all the generations before them created. So they also live in a survival mode, while living in a delusion that they are superior, not just to the animals, but to the rest of us. Thing is, in order for you to step out of your own animalistic matrix and actually be able to focus on who you are and start developing that, all you need to do is take more pauses, more breaks, and actually own every single decision about your life, your day, your week, your month, and so forth. Find your beat, find your vibe, find your music that you really love, find the art that you really like, find hobbies and skills that you really love, and do those at least a little bit every day, because that helps you find who you are, your light, and exactly what makes you happy and makes you different. Not different from others, but different for yourself. And when you start feeling yourself, you will find what makes you different, if it does, from the rest of the whole world or the universe and stuff. The more you look into things, the more you try to feel them, the more you will see how intricately connected everything is. And this is where also I would like to say, in the nature itself, I don't see a pattern of good and evil. I see a power dynamic. I see a dynamic between animals that is not based on the power, so not predatory. And which one you want to be, again, we humans have this special ability that we can adapt. We can decide who we want to be, how we want to respond, why we want to respond in that manner, and what is going to actually happen. So we can consider the cause and effect and the consequences of our words, our actions, our emotions, and everything we do, everything that we are. This is where we are different. And that gift comes from what people wouldn't say God, creation, something that's more than just nature itself. And I agree. We're gifted with an immense power of compassion, immense power of empathy and love. We're gifted with freedom of choice. That freedom of choice doesn't lie in who you're going to vote or who you're going to believe in. None of that really matters, because the ultimate choice anyone can make is either to be yourself or be what someone else is telling you to be like. The choice is yours. To be a shackled animal, a cattle for slaughter, or an actual godlike human being. That's all there is to it. Love you all. Peace.